I got back behind the wheel on a humid South Carolina Sunday, not because I missed the open road, but to relearn how to use the truck. Months in the forklift shop in Florence had made me hard to understand. Compressor whining, end-of-day whistles, slurred conversations. In the cab, the noise is different. It responds. My mission was training, to park at 90 degree, to align on a blind ramp, to feel the axle gauge without a ruler. Nothing heroic, just to fit again. The cargo smelled sweetly of a tired bakery. 3 tanks of molasses in a detachable neck RGN with a 2-axle Jeep. The setup long enough to require me to think of every corner as a sofa in a hallway. Straps in place, corner protectors, chains in place, 2 wooden stakes attached to the step. A habit of wedging and a memory of the instructor who said, "Bring a simple solution." Itinerary. Exit US 76, take SC 327, and descend through small roads to a warehouse near Mullins. Personal goal, find an empty yard along the way and practice without an audience. At 1:47 a.m. the air filled, the dashboard became a constellation. CB silent, the ham radio spat static and a sleepless preacher. Those who walk in the dark learn to look at the ground. I laughed softly. The sky was moonless, only weak milk outlined warehouses. At 2:02 a.m., already at the junction with the SC 327, 2 dormant variable message signs on the shoulder woke up as if someone had pressed enter. Diversion. The first, bridge under maintenance. The second, 100 meters ahead. I had crossed this bridge in the afternoon. No cones, no people. Early mornings have a way of being capricious. I slowed down. The first VMS pulled me onto a nameless farm road, a corridor of walnut trees. The gravel reflected the low beam like scattered sugar. I entered slowly, keeping the tank swaying. The Jeep grumbled metal. As soon as I passed, the first VMS went out and a third further away came on. Diversion. It was like being guided by an invisible patient employee. My head did the math. Those panels drain battery. Was someone reprogramming them? There was no patrol car, no construction truck, just the VMS, working at a manual pace. The sound filling the cabin was the defrost fan blowing warm, school workshop air. I'd developed a training habit, closing my eyes for half a second to sense the straight ahead by the hum. I did this, and I swear that when I opened them, the turn signal blinked at a slightly different interval, as if it were watching me. The road became a corridor of silos. The smell of yeast, stale bread. The messages switched alphabets for a moment, and I realized they weren't languages. They were pictograms, arrows from a manual. An inverted L with a square mouth at the end made me laugh. Playful programmer, I thought. I kept the tire of the last axle skimming the edge of the gravel, a usual exercise to avoid picking up the fence. A low barn shone through cracks. A clothesline flapped in the wind. The third panel blinked not on the shoulder but in the middle of the field, diagonally, hinting at a curve along a path my map labeled no data. My paper guide had a note from the dispatcher. Avoid PLCB, axle restriction. In the afternoon it was clear. Now at dawn, everything changes. And I was in practice mode, seeing if my body would obey without a script. The terrain narrowed, slow gears, the tachograph complaining. A cut cornfield, black stumps, a headless scarecrow that almost made me laugh. The turn signals, more than telling me to turn, modulated rhythm, a short blink telling me to keep going, don't let the Jeep pull you over. I obeyed. The whole thing vibrated like an instrument finding its tune. The bridge seemed long. In the afternoon, it had seemed narrow. Now, there was no guardrail. Instead of protection, 2 bright yellow lines ran across the asphalt, as if the VMS itself had been brought down with a fresh roller. I craned my neck out the window. Still black water, mosquitoes buzzing in circles. In the afternoon there was a low concrete culvert. In my headlights now, a light wooden deck creaked softly. The paint reflected as if it were still drying. My stomach lurched late. It's practice, I said aloud to myself. First clutch cable, service brake hold, count to 3, eye on the angle of my neck and the Jeep. The RGN hates surprises. The glow of the VMS behind me became like an artificial moon. I decided to try the gesture the instructor had taught me. Cut everything for a second so the body could drive without an intermediary. Thumb on the master key cylinder. Click. When the power died, the world didn't go dark. The engine stopped. The air remained suspended, but the lines on the asphalt solidified like steel tape. What had been light became a motionless pattern. Fireflies became glass dots. Mosquitoes trapped dust. The deck breathed in slow waves as if a lake were exhaling from beneath. And it became clear in my body, before reason could make itself clear, the turn signal had turned into a path. I turned the power back on. Ignition, low beam, no auxiliary lights, and found the truck where I'd left it. I accelerated a little, feeling my foot land on the ground beneath. Halfway through, a sound came through the air vents. Not the radio. It sounded like a cicada recorded in a parking lot. 2 tones, a low hum, a high hum, a pause. I played around. I shifted my position in the track, and the low hum lengthened. The high hum shortened. The lines sang my centering. Whoever had designed that translated direction into music. Pure practice. I emerged on the other side with freshly picked cotton on the left. The app remained blind. 2 more VMSs blared, "Return in 3 mi and thank you." The wind blew through the rice fields. The steering wheel relaxed in my fingers. I thought about the yard to maneuver. The random yard appeared as if it had heard it. An agricultural auction, an open fence, sodium vapor lighting, a rectangle with painted parking spaces. I pulled over to the curb and began the serious game. Blind reverse 53-degree angle, 2 corrections, and let the Jeep obey. I narrated to myself like an internal radio. I didn't need to turn on the reverse lights. The ground lit up for me. Fresh white lines emerged from the truck's shadow, creating imaginary spaces that aligned precisely with my axis. With each correction, the lines updated, like a screen redrawing a path. An arrow on the floor showed the ideal trajectory. Another, an X over my desire to cut early. It was like practicing with light cones. Instead of fear, I felt relief. Someone attentive to my hand, or the hand itself, returning it as instruction. I played for 15 minutes. I stopped on a scale that was buried and turned off but had weight plates. The arrow painting turned into a solid line, bringing my rear axle to the center. 2 more fingers, I murmured, and the answer came as silent agreement. I got off. The air smelled of stored earth. I touched cubes. Warm. The lights flickered slowly. A switch test. In the distance, the VMS returned to... I wrote in my black notebook. 0257, training, SC 327, turn signals, painting, new bridge, no incident. And more to the point, lines respond to steering. I closed the book, embarrassed, anticipating the morning's laughter. I turned on the 12V coffee maker, weak coffee that tasted like gas station coffee. My body released my right shoulder, which habitually holds its fright. SC327 reappeared on the left as its old neighbor. A gas station with a blue sign, cheap ice, diesel with app discounts, 3 trucks sleeping backward in the dust. I stopped to wash my face. On the loudspeaker, organ music spoke of harvest. A pickup truck with a cooler pulled up. The driver waved in the early morning. "Did the detour catch you in the dark?" he asked, neutral conversation. "Got it, no problem," I replied. "They test at night," he said, pointing east where a VMS yawned. "Truck drivers only trust it when they feel it in their hands." "Who they?" I ventured. "The construction crew," he shrugged. "Or the road, if you want poetry." He filled the ice chest with coins, banging them on the counter, and disappeared. I came back feeling light. The molasses tanks were churning inland. The dawn was slow to break. Sometimes I'd close one eye for half a second to feel the straight ahead, and for a moment it felt like invisible lines were running down the dashboard and laying beneath the wheels. Not always. Sometimes it was just the wind pulling at someone's tarpaulin. When the orange bar cut through the trees, the CB returned to the world. People warning of a traffic stop in Dillon, asking for space, laughing at bad coffee. The signs on the shoulder became simple iron with tired bulbs. The creek bridge, the one from yesterday, was there. Low concrete, relief pipes, A stupid duck on the lawn. I crossed slowly and looked deliberately. No clear plank, no deck. Old paint, wearing years old. The reflection of the headlight on the fender winked at me. I put the matter in the pocket where I keep my dreams. At the warehouse, the man in the cap greeted me, chewing on an unlit pipe. "Early," he said, opening the gate. I didn't say anything. Unloading is a ritual that requires no narrative. The gate opens, the molasses sings thickly, a slow waterfall, sweetness clinging to the air. I signed the note, swallowed a vending machine biscuit that resembled glue, and drank warm water. The yard was covered in tire tracks, telling stories in a spiral. A sparrow flew into the warehouse and left, unaware of its height. On the way out, I let the new habit test itself. I stopped, turned everything off for a second. Nothing froze. Nothing needed to. The world continued with the same weight, an old clock that never stops for you to see the hand move. I regained my energy and saw that what immediately responds to my hand is what I already knew. Me, on this bench, at this steering wheel. The enchanted piece of the night remained in its rightful place, the part of the brain that learns when it doesn't try to prove it. Since then, I've adopted an inner metronome, a VMS blinking on an empty shoulder. I hear the gap and try to replicate it with the pedal. A narrow bridge. I imagine the paint sliding down from the dashboard, guiding me with invisible rails. On good nights, it seems like the arrows shorten when I get it right and lengthen when I miss, like a helping hand without taking the place. On other nights, it's just tired electronics. It doesn't matter. Training is accumulating small certainties. If anyone asks why I came back, I tell the small truth: to practice until I can fit back into the truck. The bigger truth, which doesn't fit into a bombshell, is made of 2 yellow lines that for a second turn to steel and say silently, "Go slowly this way." When dawn rises again, somewhere, my finger visits the master switch like someone checking a light switch in a new house. I turn it off, turn it on, and the road returns me to the same spot. The rest is my body remembering the way, and arrows that, when I need them, appear just enough to show me how to cross. I'm not one for speeches. I'm one for delivery windows. 12 years of staying up all night, almost always dry, sometimes chilled when the agent promises to cover the headache-inducing diesel. My taste is a straight road, a side wind asking for correction, clear skies, and a horizon that never ends. That Tuesday, they sent me to the Texas Panhandle with a light load, models and signs for the science fair in Guymon, and a tight deadline. I accepted for one reason only. I wanted to be awake when my sister called to tell me if I'd passed the packaging plant interview. The deal was simple. I'd say, "Breathe, stay strong," and she'd say, "I'm in." I got on 287 after sunset. The air was thin with coffee, the air was low, and the ELD was green. The heat stayed behind when the air dried out, biting my nose. I opened a glass finger to keep my face from collapsing. In the AM, hymns and church raffles rang out when the terrain allowed. Between Claude and Panhandle City, the sky turned to a plank, and the windmills began. First 1, then 5, then a sea of towers with their red lights blinking in rhythm. I kept going at my 65, easing up when the side hit. I promised that if my eyelids got heavy, I'd pull over at the first pullout. A green sign flashed. Fairview Vista, rest area, 2 Marys. Great, bathroom, backstretch, check straps and pins, fill the bottle. When I reached the entrance, I found only a patch of cracked asphalt, 2 fallen drums, and a lampless pole. I walked straight past and joked on the PTT. Breaker 19, they stole a rest stop around here. Just a hiss. 2 minutes later, another identical sign. Fairview Vista, rest area, 2 May. Same typography, beautiful reflection. A short laugh. They'd duplicated the warning, but the feeling lingered. I rolled down the window wider, let the cold in. The dashboard nudged me. 311. I drove further. 311. My pulse read 327. Stubborn module, I said. Trucks lie sometimes. Even so, the urge to stop grew. Then came the life-saving sign. Fairview Vista, rest area, 1 T-Mielmi. I slowed down early. Deer are creatures without words, and put on my turn signal. The narrow driveway was crumbling at the edges, but it held up. My headlights swept over concrete tables, a corrugated tile shelter, a chrome drinking fountain in front of a beige-tiled bathroom. 2 yellow lights insisted on staying on. The ELD beeped status inspection without me touching it. The dashboard displayed 311 as if it were law. I left it in neutral. The engine died down until all that was left was cooling metal and a low hum of electricity in the air. I got out with the flashlight. The floor was too hard, it was too cold too quickly. I circled the complex. Tires were firm, hoses were sweat-free, pins were in place, the rear door seal was okay. I reached into the opening, the internal ratchet tight. In the corner, an old emergency phone. The guide was broken, the receiver tapping slowly against the column. Tack, tack, tack. It irritated me. I picked it up to adjust it, and the receiver pressed against my ear with the rumble of a large diesel engine idling. A deep, ancient hammer. It wasn't mine. I recognized mine in the dark. From behind came my own, hello, half a beat late. I let go. The receiver insisted on falling out. The CB crackled with the key off. 5-6, clear the inner lane. 5-6 is the last of my dot painted on the door. Public information, yes. But no one starts a conversation in the middle of the night reciting someone else's number. I grabbed the mic. Who's speaking? Just static. I let it out. The same phrase, syllable for syllable. 5-6, clear the inner lane. I turned off the radio with the master switch. The light took a second longer to die. I went to the water fountain. The button released a trickle of cold, iron-tasting water. Outside, the windmills blinked in threes, pause. I looked at my side spotlights. Without warning, they returned light in triplets, timed like a metronome. I returned to the cockpit, careful as if crossing a room in the dark. ELD. Inspection 001. Panel. 311. My pulse. 335. I took the grease pen and wrote in the corner of the windshield in large letters. 335. Writing helps the mind when the rest decides to play. I put it in gear, released the park, and pulled the car out of the parking lot. The driveway seemed longer than the driveway. I lined up on the highway. The mile marker flashed, 114. I noted it down in the automatic transmission. 2 minutes later, another 114. I slowed down. A third 114. I activated the hazard warning system twice, took a deep breath, and left my hand open on the steering wheel. The world moved on. The odometer rising, the wind changing its tone, but the markers swore I was spinning in the same square on the map. I dialed AM to distract myself. A woman played an old hymn, sweet Spanish but all choppy, like tape stuck with blunt scissors. Halfway through, a voice came on the CB without a prefix, out of nowhere. Pull over to the right shoulder, service road. Don't be stubborn. The way he refused before giving instructions was my father's. Not the timbre, I recognized that, but the cadence. I obeyed before thinking. I pointed the front end toward the parallel road, fine gravel, low fence. When the wheels hit the gravel, the whole thing gave a jolt of relief. I stopped on a flat surface. The sky, full of stars, seemed to push from above. The dust I kicked up took a while to decide where to land. Amid the silence, a thin hiss of a poorly tuned radio. Shining my flashlight at the fence, I saw red strips tied to the wire. Plastic warning strips, the kind used for construction sites. One of them trembled out of rhythm. I approached. The knot was neat, the kind someone learned by the river. I touched it. It was warm, not from the sun, but from a new hand. A strange smell of grease and burnt sugar. I slowly untied the knot and put the strip in the cup holder. Not out of blind faith, out of respect. Sometimes the world offers a piece of a map and we accept it. I confirmed the fifth wheel. Locks, plate, grease. Everything was in place. I climbed in and turned the key. The normal sequence. The dashboard stubbornly showing 311, the ELD running happily. My note of 335 on the window gave me a small comfort. I returned to the highway. The next marker said 119. My breathing changed. At 120, I smiled. Up above, the blades, which had previously seemed frozen, moved slowly, all pointing slightly north in a harmony the body feels. AM came on with a fertilizer ad. I let them. Until Dalhart, the night behaved itself. A fox crossed early, a ranch sign appeared and disappeared. A smell of burning oil came and went. In Boise City, the traffic lights seemed louder, but the green came when I turned. When my cell phone tried to signal near the Oklahoma line, it vibrated and then died, as if someone had unplugged it. Dispatch pinged, "Be careful with the shortcut on 95. A driver has lost their geofence." I replied, "Okay." Geofence is too nice a word for a piece of map that decides to become tape. I delivered it to the gym with the floor polished and the flag hanging. The supervisor stamped it without further ado. "Did you come via 287? I shrugged. "Straight." He laughed shortly. "Whenever she wants." I returned to the courtyard and closed my eyes for 20 minutes. I woke up before 8. I called my sister from the parking lot. She answered quickly, her voice firm with a tremor in the background. "Wish me luck." "Always." I heard the door open, footsteps, a good morning. I fell silent. She took a deep breath and hung up. I opened the ELD to send the log. It said, "Stop. Aero 3.11, 0330. Fairview Vista Rest Area. Inspection complete." I took a picture, it came out. I didn't choose that menu. I know what I touched and what I didn't. I sent the report and saved it. At the diner next door, stale coffee and shiny pie. At the counter, a guy in a high school baseball cap and a wide buckle stared at his cup as if it were the horizon. I started a conversation. "Does Fairview Vista really exist?" He smiled in the corner. "It depends on the wind." He told me about the fire in the 1990s after the tank cracked in the sandstorm, how they never rebuilt it, how people swore the phone would return the diesel's voice, and that the landmarks kept repeating. Was it a prank? He shrugged. "The panhandle keeps things. If you see a duplicate license plate and a stubborn clock, you'll get something red hanging from it. My aunt used to say it clears the way." I paid, walked back, laughing at myself. The red ribbon was still in the cup holder. I tied it to the mirror mount, a simple knot, the end dangling. The afternoon was pleasant. The dashboard and pulse clashed from time to time, but I already understood the message. There's a stretch that chews up time itself. It's up to us to maintain and cross it. In Liberal, I loaded empty pallets. On the way out, the wind changed a degree, and in the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of a beige tractor with a square grille, flashing its headlights in thanks. I blinked back out of politeness, not fear. At the gas station, I bought a new set of reflective triangles. I opened the box in the booth. One triangle was missing. In its place, folded, was another red strip, a river knot, just like mine. It wasn't shelf dust. Without turning on the CB, I heard softly from inside the duct, "Breathe. Keep." I obeyed. I tied the second one to the microphone, like a party bow. My sister's message arrived early in the evening. "It's done. I'll start on Monday." I pulled over onto the wide shoulder, rested my forehead on the cold steering wheel, and let the joy spill out of the corner of my mouth without a hint of a smile. She doesn't need to carry my nights. She just needs her map. Days later, the dispatcher returned me through the same corridor. I went. The windmills spun, each with their own mood. The Fairview Vista to me sign was nowhere to be seen. Where the entrance should have been, there was only a straight fence and sparse grass. The 114 marker was scratched, as if someone had tried to erase it, but the number persisted. I didn't look straight ahead to the right. Some places prefer to remain in peripheral vision. In the yard, a newbie asked if the 287 was quiet. I gave him the usual tips: deer, gust, belt, curtain closed to avoid the dawn. He asked for luck. "Take something red in your rearview mirror when you cross too much windmill," I said. "It doesn't hurt." He laughed, thinking it was a team joke. I let him. The following week, a colleague swore he saw my cab parked at Fairview Vista at 3:15 a.m., dome light on. I was almost 50 miles away, my toll ticket proving it. I didn't argue. I just asked if there was any wind. From the side. I thanked him and continued on. When dawn wants to play, it sends 3 signals. A duplicate sign, a stubborn clock, an object that didn't come with you. If 2 appear, pull over. If 3, speak quietly, check the 5th wheel, and offer a piece of tape. The panhandler listens. The road doesn't explain. We keep going and cross to the next milestone. If it repeats, write the time on the window and continue anyway. On Sunday, I stopped by my sister's house with a cheesy gift. A plastic rose from the market, the kind that lights up when charged in the sun. I tied a red ribbon to her vanity mirror. "What for?" she asked. "So I don't argue with the wind," I replied. She laughed, thinking it was my quirk, and went back to tending to lunch. On the way back on the AM, a church choir sang in its entirety, uninterrupted. My dashboard and my wrist decided to agree for a good 20 minutes. The windmills in the distance seemed to beckon. One clear morning, returning empty, I heard it again on the CB without a prefix. Inside lane clear 5-6. I was alone, the left lane empty, no headlights on the horizon. I turned on my turn signal anyway, more out of habit than fear. The strip in the mirror trembled just a little, wind of course, and the mile marker passed 121 as it should without repeating. I wrote it down out of habit, breathed easy, and let the night do what it does best. Pass. I'd already decided that after that week I was going to pull over. No announcement, no goodbye, just stop. The last leg seemed easy, crossing empty from Hobbs to Carlsbad, southeastern New Mexico, pulling into a truck stop, showering, and sleeping in the passenger seat. Clear skies, dry air, AM radio playing scratchy hymns, and the GPS stuck on a yellow triangle that wouldn't budge. I restarted. Nothing. I know the area, so I turned onto County Road 19 to cut across to US 285. A popular shortcut among those trying to avoid construction. Seemed clever. It did. The first few miles were smooth, then the asphalt turned to patch and gravel. The center line disappeared, the sagebrush brushed against the mirror, and a crooked sign said, "Road work ahead with no date." I slowed down. I don't back up in the dark, especially with mesquite on both sides. High beams made snow out of dust, no coyotes, just the Cummins breathing properly. Then the beam caught a sheen on the ground, unlike oil. It looked like waves of dried paint. I drove slowly and saw what it was. Torn, clear plastic, like a mattress cover, stuck to the gravel as if someone had dragged it for meters to the edge. About 50 meters ahead, on the left, a baby stroller with one wheel missing overturned in the ditch. I stopped. My heart leaped forward and waited for me. I don't like roadside decorations. Decorations like that are stuck on stories we don't want to reveal. I took a deep breath, put the gear in gear, hit the brake, the metal vibrating against the sole of my boot. The cabin smelled of stale coffee and the disinfectant from the last loves. My hand was sweating. I spoke out loud just to hear my voice and remember I had a name and a backbone. 5 minutes, and I'll be gone. I grabbed the flashlight and got out. 3 steps on the soft earth. The headlight only reached halfway across the road. Then darkness with sparse grass. Up close, the cart was covered in fresh dust, dust that hadn't yet settled. It seemed to be dragged by the handle and pushed with a foot. The gravel had a thin channel marking the path. Then I heard it. It wasn't an animal. It was a small, repeated sound, a swallowed sob coming from a small throat without an overt cry. It came from the right, a step beyond the flashlight's reach. I froze. It wasn't terror. It was accounting. If someone's there, what do? I carry it where? I call whoever, without a signal. What if it's a scam? What if it's true? I pointed the flashlight without entering the brush. The light caught a strip of hospital bracelet, one of those triage ones, braided around a blade of grass as if someone had tied it on purpose. The sobbing stopped. The silence that remained grew thick, the thickest I've ever seen in 40 states. My hand wanted to take another step. My body took a step back. The road wanted me into the brush, and when the road calls softly, I've learned not to respond. I slowly got back into the cab, the flashlight weighing me down. The door was closed, first gear engaged, and I moved forward at 2 speeds per hour, like someone walking down a steep hill. I didn't check my rearview mirror. The CR-19 opened onto a rough dirt road that, miraculously, met the US 285. When I saw a fleet of cars passing by with their high beams on, the driver waving his chin. My heart sank. I went to a large truck stop after the Pecos Bridge. I parked next to tour buses, turned off the dashboard, leaving only the air needle moving. I stared at the dead GPS as if it owed me an apology. I slept fitfully. I woke up to a metal door slamming, a bass radio hissing. At 6, a short shower, my beard visible on the tile and not the mirror, a microwave burrito, and watery coffee. The memory of the hiccup had the weight of a poorly adjusted brake. It doesn't disappear because we tell it to. I could have pushed the night to the back of my mind. Instead, I turned toward the New Mexico State Police Station, north of Carlsbad. The place smelled of sun-baked carpet and discarded paper. I spoke softly and clearly. County Road 19, a cart without wheels, torn plastic, a bracelet in the grass, sobbing. The trooper who helped me, Collins in his early 30s, gelled hair, a clean notebook. He didn't laugh. He opened the Eddy County map and asked me to mark it. I pointed. He anchored a red pin. Saved. Got up. Called someone. Sergeant Elena Martinez arrived, vest on, walking slowly. She opened a folder with 3 laminated photos. A shoulder with a trail leading from the gravel into the woods. Clumps of crumpled clear plastic. Circular marks like those of something scratching the ground for meters before tipping over. On each photo, a blue pen circle. Martinez turned the monitor, an icon flashing over CR19. You're not the first. Always between midnight and 3, crying, plastic. When the patrol car arrives, nothing. No footprints, no new trash. It's like someone mopped the road. She asked if I'd taken a picture. I said no. Bad signal, hand shaking. She nodded without surprise. Collins took a breath before asking, "Did you go into the woods?" I shook my head. He didn't accuse me. He just said, "If it happens again, turn on your hazard lights, high beams, keep your distance, and call us. Don't come in." I left with a crumpled brochure in my pocket and a lead weight stuck in my bone. I had lunch at a diner with a worn red bench, sticky ketchup, coffee that doesn't improve with refills. On Highway 285, everything reminded me of the little car, a retreaded tire, a crushed plastic bottle, the shadow of a fence stitching the strip. That night, at home in Las Cruces, I sat in the kitchen before video calling my daughter. The refrigerator compressor cycled on and off. I expected a hiccup between one click and the next. It didn't come. When I took off my shirt, I saw stuck in the seam next to the label a thin piece of plastic bent like an ice shard. I didn't bring it on purpose. The road brings what it wants, when it wants. The week became a textbook of small lies, a rehearsed answer to anyone who asked why I stopped taking shortcuts. Too many holes. It wasn't a hole. It was a small warning that wouldn't fit on the CB. I entered a Baptist church 2 blocks down, sat on the last pew and stared at the wood until it burned. I didn't ask for anything. I just stayed. At home, the TV stayed on longer than it should have, so the house wouldn't breathe loudly. The state police brochure crumpled into the shape of my wallet. At a TA travel center near Artesia, a new attendant commented as he filled up the tank, "Do you take County 19 in the middle of the night? Some people hear crying in the brush." I pretended not to hear. He insisted, "Driver, stop, get in, find nothing." I paid, thanked him, pulled away slowly, and swerved around the lot like someone avoiding a wound. 2 days later, I decided to return under the sun, with a clear head. I planned it as a difficult discharge, a map photo, a mile marker, daylight hours. I left at 10 in the morning, harsh light, a crackling desert. I grabbed a reflective vest, a radio on channel 19, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and a silly idea. To stick a stake with orange tape where I saw the cart, write the state police number for anyone who came later. At the entrance to CR19, the asphalt smelled of rubber and stone. I walked down to where the paint disappeared. There were new tire tracks and a small paper cup on the shoulder. It hadn't been there that night. I stopped at the cart stop. No cart, no bracelet, no plastic. The gravel had been combed by a bulldozer. You could see the metal teeth drawing in the dust. Someone had mopped it with a machine. Still, I drove the stake in, tied the ribbon, wrote down the state police number. I took 3 reference photos, 2 of the ground, 1 of the horizon, and stood for 5 minutes with the engine off. The silence was pure. Not a cricket. Not a wing. I should have left at the first hint of still air. I did. At the exit for US 285, a blue patrol car with a discreet light told me to pull over. The pattern, identification, route, reason for being in the county lanes, and a closed section. I told the truth. The patrol car officer looked at the orange tape on the seat, nodded as if he understood more than he could say, returned everything and advised caution around hitchhikers there. People who show up without a car and disappear without getting into any. I returned to the normal flow. Carlsbad, Artesia, Roswell. On the outskirts of Roswell, I stopped at Walmart for socks and water. A man in a Vietnam veteran's cap looked at me in line. "Are you okay?" I said yes. "You don't look it." It wasn't intrusion. It was the diagnosis of someone who's seen too much asphalt. I tried to change the subject. He said, "There are roads that take rides and go down whenever they want." I kept the sentence. In Las Cruces, the routine feigned normality for days. In the early hours of the morning, I woke with a sensation that wasn't a dream or a fright. It was air nudging the body to remember what it didn't want to remember. I went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. The rubber band creaked like thin plastic when I ripped it off my shirt. I washed the shirt again. Late in the afternoon, I smoothed out the state police brochure and returned it to my wallet. Every night I push my wallet to the bedside table like someone lighting a candle without actually lighting it. A month passed. I picked up regular loads. I avoided shortcuts named after counties, staying on 285 whenever possible and 62 when not. The radio told stories I wished stayed on the radio. A child's shoe lined up near White City. A baby's voice on the shoulder near Malaga. No one stopped. No one went into the woods. The police didn't confirm it. The newspaper didn't record it. The map didn't mark it. The road leads and keeps. One Friday, Sergeant Martinez called. She said she couldn't reveal much, but she'd update me because I'd filed a formal report. Patrols returned to CR-19 with thermal cameras borrowed from Border Patrol. They didn't detect human heat. They detected cold spots in the brush over 2 early mornings, as if something wasn't as hot as the rest of the desert. Clear skies, low winds. "What does that mean?" I asked. "That we saw a cold spot, that's all." Her voice wasn't alarmed, but cautious. She repeated Collins's advice. High beams, hazard, distance, turn on, don't enter. I wanted to say I learned to let it go. That would be a lie. I learned not to look when I can't finish properly. I learned not to touch when there's no way to seal the story. I learned that the dawn lies with the same authority with which it reveals. And I learned something else. There's no shortcut in the dawn. If the GPS goes out and the county road calls you, return to the road with the big number on the big sign. If the silence weighs like a full truck, turn on the lights and call for help. It's not heroism, it's maintenance. It's preventing the road from doing what it does best, swallowing what has no name. I'm stopping. I promised myself and my daughter. We don't brake from 8th gear to neutral. We downshift gear by gear. I'll still cross many painted lines before I put the key away for good. When I pass a shoulder with high brush, I'll look ahead and hold the steering wheel, not out of fear of what I saw, out of respect for what I didn't see. And yet, it stayed with me. If anyone asks why I don't take County Road 19 anymore, I'll say what anyone can say: too many potholes. I'll know it's not a pothole. It's the quickest way to end a conversation without opening a door. There are doors we open once and spend the rest of our lives closing. There are roads that take hitchhikers and go down whenever they want, never when we tell them to. If you ever pass by there after midnight, and the GPS dies, and the headlights glow like nothing but oil, don't pull over. Stay in your lane, hazard lights flashing, call the state police and tell them the mile marker. If you hear a hiccup in the brush, don't pull over. Not because I said so, because some things don't want to be found in the wrong light.